Thank you for having me. First, I would like to give you a short overview about the structure of my presentation. I give a brief introduction to myself. Then I show you how my research fits into this bigger context of tech and design. I explain a little bit about business models, about multi-sided platforms, how I did my research. I give you some examples, the status quo, and some next steps, because this is an ongoing research. Yeah, that's myself, Philip Meier. I'm a PhD student at the University of the Arts in Berlin. I'm working as a researcher at the Alexander von Humboldt Institute for Internet and Society, which is a small free research institute in Berlin. Actually, I do my, I do my PhD studies with German Mittelstand companies, and I helped them in the context of digitalization. And I spent this year, at the beginning of this year, 3 months at Stanford University. And I mentioned this because this is where I came up with the project I'm showing to you right now. And this is where I also conducted the research. I found these 3 circles actually several years ago in one of the books of Professor Katz. And since we heard some really interesting talks today about the human part and about technology, I'm thankful to hold I think it's the last presentation, and to give you some insight about the business part, which is mainly expressed with the term business model. I think most of you are familiar with the business model canvas from Alexander Osterwalder, where he has these 9 categories, like the value proposition, the customer groups, the channels. In the field of business research, there's no common understanding about the definition of business model. So I go with the definition of David Teese, who is a professor at University of California at Berkeley. And he says a business model has to answer 3 questions, which are: how do we capture a piece of the overall created value? How do we reach and win our target audience? And how do we cost effectively generate our value proposition? And what I'm mainly interested in is the part how a firm actually captures a part of an overall created value. And for this, I look at a special kind of firms, which are firms that run so-called digital platforms in multi-sided markets. So with these platforms, the firms enable transactions between different actors, so which can you see on your right side. So we move from individual contracts to standardized contracts, from single contacts to an orchestrated ecosystem, and also from manual processes to automated processes. And these kind of businesses, leveraging low asset and modular scalable infrastructure, they can scale really fast. And this is seen here, or expressed here, by a tweet from Brian Chesky, which is one of the co-founders of Airbnb. And he said that Marriott, which is a hotel chain, wants to add 30,000 rooms this year. We will add this in the next 2 weeks, because they can just onboard the flats and the offering on their platform really quickly and really easily. On the right, because those were posts, or no, the second one actually is in 2016. I looked it up today on the website, and there they say they have 6 million plus offerings right now in almost any country in the world except North Korea and a handful of other countries. And because this business model scales so fast, 6 out of the 10 most valuable companies in the world actually run digital platforms, even though most of them are quite young. And most of them actually run several of these digital platforms. For example, with Apple, you have the Apple App Store, and you have iTunes. And with Google, for example, you have the Search, and you have Android. What's my research approach, and how fits this to this context? My research question is, how do platform sponsors, which is the actor who actually controls the digital platform, capture value in a platform-orchestrated network. And I don't want to come up with another like complex and abstract business theory, but I wanted to come up with applicable principles which can complement the human-centered design and technology work for entrepreneurs with the business side. And since it's very common to look at startups when you search for innovative processes, I also did this, and I used the commercially available startup database PitchBook, and I looked at companies which are younger than 5 years, which are privately held, which secured at least one round of funding, and which of course operate a platform business model. And I did qualitative web analysis, some web search, and several interviews. And I brought to you 3 examples, which are kind of special because there it was very, very easy to figure out what kind of a value capture pattern they operate. In most of the cases, it was not that obvious, and it was not that easy to figure it out from the websites. Here, for example, is a company that's connecting brewers to breweries and brands to beers. Simply said, there are people who have a brand or an idea for a beer on the one side, and on the other side, there are breweries or companies which are able to brew beer, and the platform Brew Broker brings those two together. And for that, they use a single-side transaction cut to capture some value out of the transaction between these two parties. And here they get the value from the demanding actor, so from the company who actually wants the capacity to produce beer. Another company, Spocket, they offer drop shipping. I don't know if you're familiar with drop shipping, the concept of drop shipping. So for example, if you want to bring a certain product to a market and you want to order it with from a manufacturing company, for example, in China, you can deliver it directly to Spocket, and Spocket will then deliver it to other merchandise companies, to shops, to wholesalers. And here they have a freemium model, which is applied here to the demand side. So if you want to offer a product there, or to want to have the logistics from Spocket, then up to a certain amount of products is free, and then you have to go to a membership model. And then the third one is Cargo, which is a company that offers these boxes to Uber drivers in the US. Here what's very interesting is that the Uber driver itself is not part of the value capture mechanism, but part of the channel where the value is delivered. And they are applying an arbitrage model. So they get these the suites from the producers, and they buy them at the cheaper price than they sell them to the Uber passengers. And the Uber driver is incentivized because he gets a small fee or small profit out of the transactions. What did I do so far? I analyzed 51 of these companies. So far, I found 9 unique patterns. 56% of the cases, one side was not charged at all, so it was subsidized. This is the case when the access to either the supply side or the demand side is much more valuable for one side than to the other. The most common pattern was the single-side transaction fee. The least pattern, which appeared only once, was the cross-site free, which means the platform is not earning any money. That was a cryptocurrency company, and they publicly said that they got so much funding that they at the moment not need to make any money. Probably not sustainable. In 10 cases, there were some combinations of different patterns where, for example, one side got a transaction cut, and the other side, there was a freemium model applied. What are the next steps? I will analyze another, I think, more 70 to then 100 companies to cover a representative number. I'll look into theory, what they say, and apply my research back to the theory of for business models and digital platforms. And then I will extend my research and submit a full paper either at another conference or at the journal. And of course, I'll try my research to practice either in my dissertation project or in other contexts where I already work with founders and different companies. And that's it.